All right, episode 5 of Before You Build. We discuss on this podcast and YouTube channel the decisions that don't feel heavy yet. So everything that happens before the build. And so today we have Megan with us, who is our, let's say, head of people. So training in HR.
Yes.
And so you have helped us navigate a lot of people, situations, and obviously construction brings a lot of those forwards and in beautiful and challenging ways. So thank you for that. But you really started in restaurants before you started helping us in construction. And so can you just give me a little bit of your background and experience? Because today we're going to talk about sort of the turnover from construction to operations. So I'd love to hear more about your background.
Absolutely. And I started with Manna in 2003, helped open our first bakery cafe. So saw the construction piece of it, the hiring piece, and then became our cafe opener after that. So I think I helped open about 50 different locations and learned to do the punch list from there to figure out all the different construction pieces that went along with it. But also because I was in operations, was able to help give kind of tips and tricks and tools as to what we needed to make happen in the bakery cafe to make it easy for our team to work in there.
Yeah, I remember hearing of this this ominous punch list.
Yes.
Like when I think it was at Carmel Valley, the first time I saw you sitting down in like the cafe was brand new. You're sitting down in like a brand new booth and like you're going through this like incredibly long list. And I don't even know if that was actually a punch list or not, but I just remember seeing you going through your process and being like, oh man, this is like, she's kind of intimidating. Because you, at that point, you were the person, I mean, like you said, you personally opened probably 50 stores, right? That was my guess.
Yeah.
And that's you like leading the teams. Like, what does that mean and look like?
That meant I led a team of managers figure out how to hire people, who to hire, when to hire, how many, and a team of how to train everybody, because you'd hire about 60 people who have no Panera experience, and then you train them in about 4 days and hope they remember everything you taught them once you open the doors. Also managed a pro team, so they stayed behind for about 30 days to really make sure that the team was comfortable and they had the best guest experience possible.
And so you're doing this and how, like, when did it, so you were interfacing with construction personnel right away, right? Because you get in there, it's not open yet, things are being finalized. And so, what was your first experience or like aha moment that you're like, it's really important to have a good relationship with these construction people? Or even just noticing that I need to talk to them or interface. Like, I don't know if you just walked through the door and were like, hey, like fix this, and that, because construction still happened. But like, what was your first kind of moments of recognizing like, okay, I need these guys or I'm.
Well, the relationship is important. I think like any relationship, when you need something done from someone, it has to be a respectful relationship, especially when you don't necessarily know how to fix it. All you know is it's wrong and you can't be a jerk about it because then it's not going to be fixed right. So being respectful, asking questions, and then I think the most important piece is really we have to open another one. So what do we do to make sure anything that we had to fix this first one, we're not having to fix on the second one, that we get to the root cause of it.
And when you work with the same people, that's easier.
Oh, most definitely. And we have superintendents that will come in after we've opened because they want to watch the flow of business to truly understand about what we're asking, and they care. They want to make sure that it's right. So that's also a really nice piece to know that when the cafe is open, it doesn't mean that they're gone. They come back and fix anything that we need to be fixed or want to understand the business flow behind the things we're asking them to do, because sometimes they seem silly.
Right. Well, and what are those, when you're going through a punch list and we're turning the cafe over to you as the ops team, what are those things, what are you looking for?
Oh goodness. You're looking for things that the guests will see when they're sitting in a dining room, that if it's a corner of a carpet, lift up. If it's a gap, you're looking for things that could be safety issues. You're looking for things that catch crumbs because we're in the bread business. And in the front house, everybody leaves crumbs and you want to be able to clean those easily, but in the back house, you don't want them to be there in the first place. So making sure that those work out. It's every single little detail. You're looking for the level of shelves because you don't want people to hit their heads on them. My thing that I always go for is grout, and everybody knows it. So as
Jason actually talked about that. It's like the little spaces on the equipment that's like attached, like they're not attached to the wall, but like I fill it in, so that it doesn't get, water or whatever gets back there.
Yeah, I think, and honestly, the grout piece is probably because growing up, my parents were both teachers, and in the summer, my dad would lay tile, and my job was to pick out all the spacers of the grout. So I've always had appreciation for why grout needs to be well done, and that's like my first go-to, that I look for grout that's well done, and if it's not, we need to fix it because it gives the overall impression. If you can't make your grout look good, what else are you missing when it comes to structural in the cafe?
Yeah, and it's funny because like when Jason was here, I think he mentioned grout, but he also mentioned that, and maybe that's what I was tracking with there, but with like the actual space, like you look at all the space between equipment and wall and things like that, which is like extremely detailed and really helpful for the cafe long term, because I run our facilities teams here and I see what happens when the water gets behind equipment or like the grout isn't done correctly, and having to fix things downstream is one of the things that like we want to avoid, because that is the same capital that you can use to build new locations.
Right.
What do you think that is, like from your perspective, from an ops point of view, like one thing that can, like you would want to tell a construction team that had no like prior knowledge? I think that probably a lot of what you've said over the years we've just taken like as osmosis and like learned from. But like if you were training like a new construction person and they've never built a restaurant before and they're coming in and turning over, like what's something you wish you could say to them?
I think first impressions are most important. So if you're turning over a restaurant to somebody, it's whoever's walking in to pick up that restaurant from you, they're looking at it from the parking lot to the front door to when they walk into whatever they're turning over to you. And if you have plans all over the place, if you have tools everywhere, if the superintendent is nowhere to be found or yelling at somebody over the phone, like your initial like lenses get dark really quickly because you've just given a bad first impression, and it means whoever you're turning it over to is going to look even deeper. So I think I would say first impressions are everything, even though that may be a little silly. It may be the most beautiful building you've ever turned over, but you've got to have that good first impression.
And you're saying like actually working in interface with like construction teams as coming in from the operator, as an operator team. Is that what you're referring to when you say first impression?
I think when it comes to, I guess I'm answering like when it comes to turning over the building. Like if I'm walking into a finished building, when I'm walking in, I truly expect it to be finished. If I see things that aren't, like my radar goes off, that means there's other things that aren't finished. If you couldn't put your plans away, then you probably missed something else in the location, and I'm just gonna keep digging until I find it. Or if I walk in and it's like pristine, maybe everything's hidden in your truck, I don't know, and it doesn't matter, then my guard is lower because I can see that you took care of the little things before I even walked in.
Yeah, because like a lot of our guys are very passionate about having like minimal blue tape, which is usually what you put on the items that you want us to fix. And, they tend to be the same things, and so, when we walk in and we see a lot of blue tape, it's a sign that something usually was amiss. And so, yeah, I think the goal for us is to give you obviously completed space, but it is interesting to think about how construction impacts operations long term. Is there anything specifically that you think of that like construction of the actual space and facility, like how it impacts operations downstream that is like that stands out to you over the years? You're like, this is something that, and maybe you've already said it, like you said, like the size, water getting behind equipment or, someone hitting their head or safety issue. But is there anything, maybe you would add to that that kind of sticks out?
well, something I always appreciate from the construction team is recognizing when it doesn't work for us in the plans and being able to change the plans or change the design for future locations. Obviously, once we're in there, we can't change it.
Right.
But even to that note, the construction team has always said, okay, we can't change it, but we can do this. So it's not like, no, it's finding out an alternative solution to still make it work for the team, whatever it might be. Obviously, cracks anywhere and water are issues. I'd say holes in the wall are also issues, and I don't mean like holes in a bad way, but I think that's something that we've definitely learned is you wait to hang up all the shelving until the ops team has come in, because just because it is that way on a plan doesn't mean that shelf actually works there. And so you have to wait for the ops team to come in and decide what's going on that shelf before you place it. And we learned that probably a year into opening Panera's, because the team, again, first impressions are important. They'd want to have all the shelving up, and then I'd walk in and I'd be like, all that shelving has to move, and then you have to fill all the holes you just drilled into the wall, and that's not fun for anybody, and it doesn't look good.
Yeah, and that's like a really important point. I feel like all these different little nuances are huge talking points. Like, you're coming in from an operator perspective, and organization is like one of the most important things for you. And space, like our spaces are becoming smaller and smaller and smaller. So the difference between a shelf being over here and over there is actually very significant. And I think it takes someone with the experience to come in and evaluate that. And I think probably one of the things that we've, overlooked is like a huge advantage for us as we've grown on the restaurant side, is that we have such tight lines of communication between ops and construction that we can adjust like that. Like, we can make those adjustments that you're wanting to do because you know what it's best once you're in there. And then also, like, the feedback, I was thinking about how many times we've changed plans over the years. Like, you get into a project, we have the mindset that we're gonna grow, we're gonna scale, we're gonna continue to go. And your team and you are able to give us direct feedback that we can literally take and put into the next project and be like, okay, we're gonna move the barista counter over here. We're gonna, move this shelf from being behind this door. We're gonna open up this space more. Like, those communication, that tight communication with the same people over and over again, I think is actually something that's made us really evolve well over time.
Well, and I would say it's a huge win, because when you do get that feedback from the ops team, you take it seriously, because we're literally sometimes asking something to be moved 2 inches, and your response isn't, well, it's just 2 inches. No, for us, like, 2 inches is a big deal, and the team doesn't ever push back on it. You may think we're crazy, but you don't say it to us, and you just move it to the 2 inches because we need that space.
Yeah, but that's also I think that's like that point of like what you're talking about, even just relationships in general, first impression, etc. Like, we're able to respect your, vision for what you're doing, but it's been earned over so many reps. And I think, like, I haven't shown you this yet, I don't think, but like, we're looking at Manna Construction and what it can do for our clients. And it's pretty insane. Like, you have the inception of an idea, like, I want to sell chicken, or I want to, whatever it might be your dream is. From the very beginning, we can help navigate through all of the different phases of like selecting location, the size of your space, all the different things. And when it comes down to turning over to ops, there's a lot that actually happens in that like dance that's, really informative for us moving forward, and also like sets you up, being able to like make those micro adjustments to set you up that you only know from opening 50 restaurants and training a team.
Right.
And then for us, going back to the same person and working with them, over and over and over again allows us to adapt with them as well. So I think there's like a lot of that there that, when I think about how Manna Construction can come alongside like a scaling concept and help them navigate all the different phases of what it looks like to build a building and turn over to ops and then manage the facility till closure. There's a lot of benefit in working with the same person over and over, same, group of people. So I think that's a good plug for our continued business. But I have a couple more questions for you.
Okay.
So how do, and this could be a very broad question, but how do layout, storage, and equipment placement affect workflow? I wanted to get like really into the weeds there.
So I have this crazy pet peeve that I probably shouldn't even say it because it's not Mana, and Mana Construction can't really help fix it. But when Panera designs locations, they don't think about where a trash can goes. And we expect to operate a clean restaurant, and it's very hard to operate a clean restaurant when you don't have a place for employees to put trash, because you generate trash when you're making sandwiches and salads. And the superintendents will always laugh at me because we'll go and do a walkthrough, and I'm like, where am I supposed to put the trash can?
Yeah, totally.
And they're like, it's not in the plans. And as we've evolved, we sometimes find more space for trash cans. But I'd say when it comes to equipment and layout, trash cans is always the one that just blows my mind that architects don't think about. But when it comes to all the layout of other equipment, it is very strategic. You want the least amount of steps possible for your team. You want them to be able to see a guest at almost any interface when the walls are opened or the cash registers are low. If a guest can see an employee needs to be able to recognize a guest. And all those little things have to do with your equipment placement and the layout of the cafe. I know that's kind of a short answer, but...
No, I mean, Eddie and I, the first conversation Eddie and I had was we talked about, and maybe it was the second one, but it was about size. And my point was like, let's start small and then go from there. Like try to get it as optimized as possible and then go from there. And Eddie was kind of like pushing back on that a little bit, and we were kind of working through it. But one of the things that came up was trash. Because when you don't have enough space in your back of house for all the things that you need, they end up in funky places. They end up in the hallway, like when you're going to the bathroom and all of a sudden you see the dry storage there and you're like, that's not a good look for a restaurant. Or the whale, the trash ends up in the drive-through.
Right.
And you're just like, that's not good. That's not a good look. And that is a function of, it's a byproduct of the size of the space that you're choosing and your ability to design what is in those plans. And that's just like a small point. There's so many of those, that do impact your ability to get into this space so that you can pay what your business can afford.
Right.
And then also not, take away from the guest or associate experience by, having them run trash super far away, or, having it visually be in the drive-thru when you're trying to eat, a nice meal and you're having to look at the trash or whatever, or you can't get into the bathroom because there's like cups and whatever dry storage. So yeah, I think that's been an interesting, like, meandering trail for us over the past, but it's a good point. And there's a lot to probably say about it, especially because some brands are very sophisticated, and if they're at 2,500 restaurants like Panera, they're going to be very sophisticated. But the newer brands that are coming up and growing, like, you can see on their plans that there are like, there's typically opportunities.
Right.
Okay, so what small design choices create big operational problems later?
Can we still talk about trash cans? I'm just
Of
kidding.
course. Yeah. No, I
There's usually it has to do with things that are aesthetically pleasing. So in cafes we'll have mirrors that are turned a certain angle that are supposed to look neat but don't always deliver the right thing. We used to have big things of wheat which just collect dust, or large glass jars of like beans and rice.
Yes.
They just can't sit somewhere because they're glass and you don't actually use them. So then you have to glue them to whatever you've just built, and then you can't clean them because they're glued. So usually it's the design piece, not necessarily
Like the look.
Yeah.
Like I think of like a merchant. I was in this I was at a potential client's shop. They have a merchandising table. It's not even like a table, it's like a shelf, and it's long, it's kind of like you run right into it when you're in line. And they have all these like trinkets, and like it's super creative and really, really cool, but like it has like a lot of opportunity to be spruced up. And I think from a design, you're thinking like, oh, this is really cool. It's like an expression of my creativity, but like in practice, it's going to collect like dust.
It's going to collect dust, and you can't always expect somebody who is not a designer to keep it the way you did, which then leads to us gluing things down to shelves, which also can look funny if you don't glue it correctly, or somebody tries to pull it off the shelf, and now you've just pulled the laminate off the shelf because you were also pulling whatever was glued to it. Like those little things that can be cute can.
So when
be
you
so
think
cute.
of, so when as a interior designer for like a commercial space, or even just like a dreamer is like, you know, up and coming or whatever, make sure you think that like, how's this going to function when I'm cleaning it? Or yeah, I mean, pretty much when I'm cleaning it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much dust does it collect? Is it removable? Is it
And
breakable?
can I clean it without having to go like do something really creative? Because it's already challenging enough to clean, to get, you know, you have to really be a strong manager to get a place really clean in the first place. So adding any extra variables is tough.
Yeah, consider who you're asking to clean it. So if you are an operation that has entry-level positions where a lot of your team, it's the first time they've ever had a job, and sometimes they're actually learning how to sweep for the first time, learning that Windex is used to clean glass. So what are you asking them to clean, and is it actually feasible for your population to do it without hurting themselves or breaking what you've got?
I mean, it's a great point, because it is like that. There's so much simplicity in cleaning, but there's so much nuance to it too. And you watch that, you know, you tell someone to like clean the line, and unless you, and someone might take that as like, okay, I'm gonna clean, you know, some of the stainless or whatever, but you know, or someone will take that and go deep and actually clean it. And I do think that that's some of those decisions you're making around how complicated it is to keep your place really organized and clean is one of like maybe one of the biggest things around environment long term that matters. And we also see it in the maintenance of equipment. Like if you have complicated cleaning around your equipment, it can break really quickly. And some of that equipment is like core to your product. And if that equipment is breaking and it's core to your product, like you have to replace it. Or if you don't replace it, your speed of service is going to go way down, because maybe you have one that you can like limp along, you know, thinking of multiple different equipment we've had over the years.
Well, I even think about when you say that, we have bread slicers, and when you're putting bread through a bread slicer, it vibrates massively. And we used to have our bread slicers in front of tile walls, and the amount of bread you slice and the amount of vibration from your bread slicers in front of tile walls, eventually that tile gets cracked and it falls off. But in the design, it looks beautiful, but long term, it's not a realistic solution to put nice, expensive tile behind a vibrating piece of machinery.
Well, and we've done that with stainless in the back of the house. Like we think that, because stainless is very expensive, but do you want the ceiling to turn orange? I mean, it's like, what's the trade-off, right? Or if you do put FRP and it's white, like someone's gonna have to clean it, and those are hours. And I mean, I just think those little decisions like can really set you up. Or even just square foot. Like if you have more space in the back of the house, you're gonna have to clean more of it.
Right.
So yes, all good points. So how does building design affect training? We already talked about cleaning. So how does it affect training and staffing?
Training during an opening process can be very tricky with the building design, because you have more people in there than you're expecting. So when it comes to opening a Panera, we hire approximately 60 people. We split them in half, so we train 30 in the morning and 30 at night. But in the real world, you probably have 12 people on a shift. So from a training standpoint, in a new location, you have twice as many people there as you need. And it makes it tricky because you're trying to all fit them in a spot that they don't necessarily get to be in, or with that amount of people. Or you're all trying to use one piece of equipment. You have 5 people trying to use one piece of equipment, because in the real world, you only need one, but you're trying to teach them all how to use it. The espresso station is a great example for that, because everybody needs to know how to make all those drinks, but our espresso station is 4 feet long with one espresso machine and 2 blenders to try and get everybody to train in that process. We just have to get a little creative.
how do you overcome those challenges?
We break them into smaller groups. We'll have people sit in the dining room and kind of talk through the process. With Panera, we have videos that they can watch too, which is helpful, but actually doing it in real life is the easiest way. So we take baby steps.
And so the building design, because we've obviously, like when we're creating our restaurant space now, I said this earlier, but we're getting smaller.
Mm-hmm.
So does that mean that you're hiring less associates?
Yes, if it's substantially smaller when it comes to equipment and the layout of the restaurant, yes. So typically we would hire 60, but then we have our small box version. I think we hired 30 for that location. So we definitely still had the same space constraints because it's even smaller than our normal one. But it's not a detriment to the business because it's set up according to business. We just, for the training piece, when you're not open,
there's a lot of people.
Makes it a little tricky.
And how does that look like when in more like a Caribou design where it's really small?
Same. You have a lot more shifts. So instead of splitting the day in half, you'll split the day into quarters, or instead of having 3 days of training, you have 6 days of training, and not everybody shows up at the same time. So you really have to have a longer runway to be able to open the bakery cafe or a Caribou, for your example, because you have to take more time to train everybody because you have such a small location. So you can't open in 3 days, you have to open in 6.
Yeah, and that's when you're deciding like the training schedule, it's based off of largely of like how much you can fit into like a week, and like if you can how many touch points you can have with that, 60 people or whatever.
Right, and we don't operate in a perfect world. So your opening day is usually your opening day, and sometimes you have to figure out, okay, how do I make this happen? Because maybe now I thought I was going to have 6 days, but I have 4. So what am I going to do? And you just make your days longer to get it open. And
that makes sense. I know that there's probably a whole nother conversation, but I just wanted to touch on it. And probably go 2 angles. One, you've always had a passion for women in construction or women in leadership in general. So I want to eventually go there and talk about that more. So I just wanted to acknowledge it today and say that's another conversation I want to have. And I was just curious, like, as to why that's important to you. And I could have said it all wrong there too, so I don't know.
No, you said it great. I think it's important to me because I've been doing this for a long time now. I've been doing this for 20 years now, and I see a pattern where women who are ready for a position don't raise their hand because they don't feel like they're ready. And men will raise their hand for a position that they're not necessarily ready for, but know they will be once they get that position. And it's just a different approach between men and women. So because I've noticed that pattern, I feel obligated to push women to take roles that they're ready for because they personally don't think they are, but I know they are, or I know they'll figure it out when they get there because they're hurting their own potential growth by letting somebody who's actually not ready for a position take it because they're afraid to raise their hand because they're not ready enough. So I become the pushy broad that pushes them to go there, and I love doing it. I love seeing them get into those roles and realizing they're 100% capable of doing it, and I love seeing them get into those roles and realize that they can do better than maybe the person that had it before them, or take a role that I had and seeing them do that role better than me. I have 2 females that I work with that have taken roles that I previously had, including one of them being opening locations for us, and they both do the roles so much better than I ever did, and I just love seeing it. And not to say a man couldn't do the same thing, but I just love being able to pour into them and having them being able to achieve something they maybe didn't think they were able to do.
Yeah, I mean, when you say it, I for sure have done that myself. Like
I'll figure it out.
Put me in, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I think that's a very valuable conversation, but I think that the time today we don't have, and I want to respect it and give it more more time, but I at least wanted to at least close it off with that.
Thanks.
I do think that like some of the things that are coming to mind that we could talk about is the topic around women in construction or workplace, HR in construction. And I'm not sure how to dance that one
We're
well.
just going to title it Drama for Your Mama.
Drama for your mama.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to spend I would like to go deeper on both those and maybe, I think that the turnover ops piece is always, it's such a crucial point of time. And there's so many things that we could have probably, gone deeper into. But I think my large takeaways is the communication you have between ops and construction is invaluable. If you have those quick feedback loops, you can make changes either in real time, like the shelves and the trash and the different things that we see in when you're actually physically there on turnover, and you have a good relationship and you have open feedback and you feel empowered to do that because of the relationship you have with one another. And then also moving forward in projects, a lot of the time, fast growing companies, like that feedback. I mean, another cafe is getting approved to go through the process to have the construction's drawings, completed, et cetera. And those are all very expensive things to redo. So having that feedback, we're gonna have to move something that has plumbing, that, we're gonna have to move something. I think
we don't
those
pick
are
anything easy to move.
No, of course not. Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, and it should be though, right?
Yeah.
I think the first LinkedIn post I did was about how we chose to put 9 construction plans back into planning after COVID because the back of house operations for Panera completely changed. And so instead of going forward with those, we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to rewrite, re-permit, and because long term, it's a better decision to do that because the footsteps matter, and we know that that constraint on the ops team and the space and everything is gonna be problematic for not only our business model but more importantly for our people. So I think there's a lot of angles here, but I think that the communication is super huge. That's what stands out to me. I think the aesthetics that are not easy to clean or don't function well is another standout to me. And I think those are really helpful, just those 2 components alone are really helpful tips. I think obviously the other one probably underneath the surface is having a great person who really knows your brand and respects your brand, who's coming in and doing the turnover. That's something that you've done really well. You know the brand, what our standard is, and you carry that. And I think that that's the major gatekeeper to a restaurant's success from the very beginning. So I appreciate you doing that, and I think your insight's invaluable. So thank you.
Thanks.
Cool. We did it. Right on.
We're going to be YouTube famous.